All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Laurie Silvey. I am the State Chair for Illinois Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. In my day job, I work for the Illinois Chamber of Commerce as the Vice President of Business Services, and that's how I got to know Debbie through the OFallon Shiloh Chamber. So ESGR is a volunteer organization within the Department of Defense aimed at bettering the relationship between employers and their reserve component service members. I'm going to go ahead and start, and Debbie, if you wanted to just say a few words of welcome real quick, and then we'll turn it over to my colleague for the presentation.
Great. Well, we really appreciate this opportunity. You know, we are right outside of Scott Air Force Base, and we have a lot of guardsmen and reservists in our communities. We're very supportive of Scott Air Force Base and our military, the city, the village, the county, and we're just proud to be here. So thank you very much for having us.
All right. And with that, Michael, Holub is our vice chair with Illinois ESGR. He's a former police chief and has been involved with Illinois' committee for many years. And he's just going to provide us with a real short briefing on ESGR and USERRA. So I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
All right. Is my screen visible now?
It is.
All right. So in my day job, I'm a grandfather. As Laurie said, I'm retired, but I spent 40 years in law enforcement, and I'm also an Army veteran myself. So I became involved with ESGR because I had several of my police officers who were in the Guard and Reserve, and actually 3 of them were being deployed at the same time, and I needed to know exactly the correct things to do for them and expectations and such. So as Laurie said, we've been around since 1972. If you'll remember back then, I don't think anybody's old enough to remember the Vietnam era, but that's when I served. I was a Vietnam era draftee, as a matter of fact. I joke all the time, it's the only lottery I ever won. But I served during that time, and the operational component of the military at that point was only 11% Guard and Reserve. And so we all know, especially this group in particular with your close proximity to Scott, you know that it's a significantly different Guard and Reserve today. And it represents over half of the operational component of our military today. So we have members all over the country and in several committees that help to inform and educate employers and members of the Guard and Reserve. So we do briefings like this for service members as well as employers and groups of people. So our mission, we want to make sure that both sides play together well, so to speak. So we want to recognize people for their outstanding support. Yesterday, I did a presentation to some FBI agents who are supervisors of 2 Army reservists. And we recognize them when we can, but we also want to increase awareness of the law. So even though we represent the E part, employers, as well as the Guard and Reserve aspect, we are not, we don't take sides. We're independent, and we just advocate for the law. And we do that through education and awareness and resolving conflict through mediation on occasion. The vast majority of employers do things the right way. They want to do it. Occasionally they misstep. It's been our experience that it's not intentional. Sometimes they just chose a wrong direction or weren't sure. And we want to let people know that, especially employers, that we're available to you as a resource to bounce an idea off of us or ask for some clarification on an aspect of the law if you should need that. And although we want to be the 4-letter agency of the government that people don't have to call, we'd rather have you call and run something by us and, work it out that way. So the bottom half of this slide shows the Illinois snapshot. And I know you're right on the border of Missouri, but with Illinois, we represent people by the state that they live in. And that bottom number, we have about 24,400 plus service members in one of those 7 branches. And the statement of support you're going to sign has the 7 seals right across the top there. And that's the 2 Guard components and the 5 reserves. So we represent all those people and try and reach out to them as much as we can. So it's a pretty big number, a significant number. What are your requirements? Really simple. You got to let her go. You got to let her come back. And you have to keep things significantly the same during their absence. So you have to grant their leave. We have to reinstate them when they return, restore their seniority. They should be treated as if they never left. And I'm using the example of a one-year deployment. If Laurie and I were similarly situated in our company and she was a service member, but I was not, she deploys. I come back and I advance in my career. When she returns, she joins me exactly where I am and where she should be. So she goes right to the top where she was with seniority and any other benefits that might have come along those ways. You do have to provide them with retraining or refreshing the skills. For example, my police officers all needed some retraining on some software upgrades for our dispatch software. And the big one in the bottom there is not discriminate. Sometimes that's really apparent, and sometimes it's subtle. You know, gee, I'd like to make you my weekend supervisor, but that guard thing just makes you unreliable to me. That's kind of a subtle form of discrimination. So I always tell employers, treat people as if they were never gone, and don't treat their military absence, leave of absence, different than anybody else in your company on a similar or other type of leave of absence. So if that's a Family Medical Leave Act or a maternity leave of absence, don't treat them any differently. And sometimes that's how employers get themselves in a little bit of a fix when they think there are separate rules or things that they should do differently than anyone else on a leave of absence. Health plans, a lot of service members take advantage of the options that they have through their military service. But if they choose to stay with your health plan, you can do what the law says and charge them that 2% administrative cost. The big thing is the re-enrollment period. They don't have to wait if they return and in July and the next enrollment period is in February. You can't make them wait. They should be admitted back in right away. With pensions. Again, this is credible time. This is credible service. Using Laurie and I again as the example, our pensions would be identical. My time gone would be considered as credible service in that pension, although I do have to pay my contribution portion. So does the employer, and it would apply to anyone, even for a month of deployment, or there were some annual trainings last year especially in the Army Guard side in Illinois that were approaching 60 days. So, that would all be credible time. Reemployment position, this goes to the explanation I gave earlier about the escalator clause. Wherever the person was when they left and where they would be in that 1 year time period is where they should be returned. There are some cases we've had where the job that they left did not exist in its exact form when they return, but you have to return them into a similar position with like benefits and like salary. Protection from discharge. When I give this briefing to service members, I said that you're protected upon for a year after your return, except for cause. And if you go out into the parking lot and flatten your boss's tires and break out his windshield with a ball peen hammer, don't call ESGR, because we're not going to be able to do anything for you. That would be a cause. So that's a drastic example I use to kind of get them chuckling a little bit. But I have had some situations where service members have been terminated via email while deployed. I talked to a few of them and was able to get them back their jobs. But I knew when they got back, they were going to be under extreme scrutiny, and they did as well for anything. And it wasn't a comfortable position for them, but those are by far the exception and not the rule. As I said yesterday, I did an award presentation. The first level award that we have is called the Patriotic Employer Award. And the unique thing about that one is it's specifically for a supervisor, an individual. It's not for the company. Some of those other awards are specifically for an organization or an association or a company, but the Patriot Award is so unique because it definitely is for that individual supervisor. And it's probably one of the most fun things we do, just like briefings like this where we talk to employers or service members. But the award presentations, they're not only fun, but they tear at your emotions, because when you hear about some of the support that these service members receive from their employers while they're deployed, cutting grass, bringing gifts over for the children on their birthdays, making sure that they're, well attended to, shoveling snow. They really tear at your emotions, and they're quite striking. And they can go all the way up to the Secretary of Defense National Freedom Award. They only give 15 of those a year, and we've had quite a few recipients in the state of Illinois. Statement of support, that's what you're here today, and Laurie's going to talk to you a little bit more about that. You know, the military and the government, we love our acronyms. So you see adherence to USERRA, and that's the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, and that's the act that covers those service members. When there are labor agreements or state statutes that apply, especially, I always use the example of units of local government. The state of Illinois has some additional benefits for service members, but the precedence of law starts with the federal government. And so USERRA starts at the top level of protection and rights and obligations as well. And that's the baseline. Now you can build more, but you can't take away from USERRA Act. So again, we encourage you, if you have questions, to call us, ask, because we're here for you. We're free. We're confidential, and we've been extremely successful when there have been conflicts. Mentioning the 24,400 service members early, I just want to bring into perspective that last year we had only about 60 issues that came to our attention. 60 out of 24,400 is not bad. We resolved those at well over 80% in just a couple of days, most of them with just a phone call reminding either the service member or the employer of the law and bringing them into full compliance. So, if you were using a baseball acronym, because baseball's starting up again, we're batting about 850, not a bad batting average, and we're doing it well. So when you hear from your employers about talking to someone from ESGR, I encourage them to call us first before going to things like a private legal counsel or a grievance process, because with this great record that we have, we're probably able to resolve these things rather quickly. And so if you hear that the ESGR was contacted, that's probably why. And again, most service members want to do the right thing, and that's the same thing for the employer. So that's my quick briefing of ESGR. So we turn it back over to Laurie. And I will stop sharing my screen here.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And I'm going to go ahead and share. Okay, I'm hoping that you're seeing the statement of support right now. So this is what we are here for today. The Statement of Support Program is one of ESGR's major efforts to build strong support for the Guard and Reserve. And the purpose is to encourage more employers to support their reserve component employees by publicly acknowledging that the company signing the document recognizes the importance of the Guard and Reserve. So I'm going to go ahead and read what you are signing today. So it says that you join other employers in pledging that we fully recognize, honor, and comply with the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. We will provide our managers and supervisors with the tools they need to effectively manage those employees who serve in the Guard and Reserve. We appreciate the values, leadership, and unique skills service members bring to the workforce, and will encourage opportunities to employ guardsmen, reservists, transitioning service members, and veterans. And we will continually recognize and support our country's service members and their families in peace, in crises, and in war. So if at this point, if you will go ahead and sign the document and proudly display that to us. Perfect, thank you. Great. All right, thank you all. So we have a few of the employers on the line who are going to just tell us a few words about why you're signing the statement. So Debbie, do you want to go ahead and introduce those people?
Absolutely. We'll start off with Walter Denton from the city of OFallon. And yeah, congratulations. Thank you all for doing that.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate learning a little more about it. We do have two police officers who are reservists and have been deployed over the last few years. And so we have dealt with those issues that you explained, and we supported them 100%, and we've made sure that they've been brought back in good shape and stayed with us on the police force. And so we're proud to have them on our police force and for them to serve the country. So we're happy to sign the certificate.
Thank you, Walter. Next, we have Patti Fischer from HSHS-St. Elizabeth's Hospital.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks for the presentation. HSHS-St. Elizabeth's Hospital is very proud to have a long-standing relationship with both the reserves and the Guard, and especially because of the proximity of Scott Air Force Base near our facility. And through our programs and our hiring processes, we welcome current military and veterans as colleagues throughout our entire system, not only St. Elizabeth's, but other ministry health centers as well. And the values are closely aligned with ours and our mission of service in the healthcare field. So we're proud to sign, and we're happy to be a part of this, and appreciate you inviting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Dossett from Memorial Hospital East.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks for the presentation. At Memorial's hospitals in Belleville and Shiloh and across all of BJC, we are truly proud to partner with the men and women of the Guard and the Reserve. In addition to our nation's veterans and military spouses, we believe that partnership through employment opportunities is mutually beneficial, just as Patti said. We believe the service, the sense of service, dedication to teamwork, integrity, and really the increased learning agility that is possessed by the men and women of the Guard and Reserves really helps advance our mission. So at BJC Healthcare, we're committed to improving the health and well-being of the communities that we serve through leadership, education, innovation, and excellence in medicine, all of which are great partnerings with what we believe Guard and Reserve members bring to the table. We believe that compliance with USERRA is really an obligation to our nation, and we strive to build an environment that really all service members can feel comfortable and at home. And in addition to policies that support these, we've tried to implement programs such as affinity groups. So we have one that we call the BJC Connections Group, which allows our veterans, our Guard, our Reserve, and active military to come together and to serve through BJC and give to our communities and to others. So it's really our pleasure and privilege to support and sign this. As we look at organization-wide, we have many frontline contributors who are in the Guard and Reserve. We have doctors, we have nurses, and we go all the way up to senior vice presidents in our organization. So not only do we try to put our policies in place, but we try to live the mission by making sure that we have veteran, Guard, and Reserve represented in all levels of the organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have Dr. Cindy Doil from SIU-Scott Air Force Base.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Doil, and my weekend job is teaching for Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. And we have a number of students who are Guard and Reserve. It's very, very interesting because in the middle of class, oftentimes we'll have folks deploying and or having issues where, they have to, remotely work on coursework. But in each and every case, we make allowances for our Guard and Reserve students without any trouble. We've got a very interesting program. It's an accelerated weekend program. So our students are actually able to finish their degrees within a year. And nice. when we're not in COVID situation, we meet every other weekend. And it's all day, Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 4 for our students. So it's really a commitment on their part to get their degrees done in that year. And of course, they have coursework to do in the weeks in between. But I have to tell you that, we have students from all walks of life. In many cases, our students have tried college at one point in time and didn't necessarily succeed, but now that they're adults, they're returning to school and committed to being able to get that degree so they can get promoted and do what's important to them. And we certainly support them in every way we can, but it's actually an honor to have them in our classes. So thank you for your support, for everything that you do for our veterans and for the Guard and Reserve.
Thank you. Next, we have Sid LeGrand from Gonzalez Companies.
Hi, I'm Sid LeGrand. I'm a senior civil engineer with Gonzalez Companies. We are a professional civil engineering and construction management firm specializing in infrastructure projects. We are very supportive of the Guard and Reserve. We presently have two individuals. One individual is in the Army National Guard. A second individual who's in the U.S. Army Reserves, who's on 365-day deployment. Currently, he's about halfway through that. We are very fortunate to have these folks on our staff and the veterans as well. What we find is that our veterans and our reserves and Guard people have a tremendous work ethic and they're great, loyal employees. So we're always looking for extra individuals. We're happy to support this.
Thank you, Sid. Then we have Benjamin Brink from Webster University.
Am I demuted now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are.
Oh, I'm a retired Navy captain with 36 years active in reserve service. I was deployed to Afghanistan about 10 years ago now. When I was there, they called me that damn Navy colonel. So what can I say? It's a real pleasure to represent Webster at this meeting. I have a long personal connection to ESGR as a regional commander of 20 Navy intelligence units in California, 6 Southwest states in the Pacific. ESGR helped me with several reserve and employer issues. More recently, after I retired from the Navy, I spent several years as the Missouri director for ESGR veteran employment. My first introduction to Webster, in fact, came through an ESGR meeting where I met the then Vice President of Academics, and she arranged for me to have my first adjunct teaching job at Scott Air Force Base. So lots of personal connection to ESGR. I currently direct 30 plus military campuses for Webster. My second in command is a retired sergeant major in the Army. And many of my campus directors are retired military spouses, and members of the Reserve and Guard. We have a strong representation of former military in our ranks. It's not just because we have military campuses, but because of the strong leadership and experience brought by veterans. So when I was directing ESGR's veteran employment effort for this state, for my state, I gave a lot of briefs, and so I was thinking about that as I was talking this morning and what I briefed, and it's really key to understand veterans are extremely valuable to private industry. Compared to their civilian age peers, veterans are 10% more educated, have a leadership experiences far greater and much earlier in their careers, have learned and embraced a high sense of ethics and a strong work ethic. Employing veterans is not only the right thing to do, it makes business sense. So what does Webster do? Webster provides graduate, undergraduate, and continuing education to the military community, including active military, Guard, Reserve, spouses, dependents, and veterans. Our students learn on ground, online. In fact, we've been online since '99, and we've been using video teleconferencing for about 10 years. So this COVID-19 event has been an expansion of what we've done for a long time rather than something brand new to learn. Many of our students, especially military students, begin at a campus, continue while they're deployed, finish when they get home. And what I think we take great pride in, what we've done for a long time, is we provide flexibility for the military student, active, reserve, and Guard. We're headquartered just across the river in St. Louis. In Illinois, we have campuses at Scott Air Force Base, and at Great Lakes Naval Base. Webster is celebrating its 46th year serving our armed forces on base campuses, although somewhere deep in our history, we've actually started doing education for military in about 1947. So it's longer than that. We just had our 101st graduating class this year as a university, and we have over 25,000 military and veteran alumni. We're honored, I am honored, to be part of a school that has such a continuing opportunity to serve our veterans, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and Guard. I never want to forget the Guard. So thank you all for letting me be part of this virtual statement of support. Susan Schultz, who is also at the meeting, is signing for us. She's our director at Scott Air Force Base, and we go through signings at all of our campuses at one time or another during the year. So thank you all. Great to be here.
Thank you. Next, we have Rick Stubblefield from St. Clair County.
Good morning. On behalf of Chairman Kern and our Director of Military Affairs, Kimberly Huth, we are so pleased to be part of this. The county has unwavering support, not only for the Guard and Reserve, but also for all military members and their families, whether it be through workforce development and presenting at each of the transitional assistance program classes, whether it be through special grants to help with infrastructure on the base, the support for the base, and what the base gives back to us is truly amazing. But more importantly than that, I think this shows, because of each of you and because of what all of you do, the chambers and each of you as employers and as individuals and what you have done for this area, that's what gave us the opportunity, and that's why St. Clair County was recognized by the Association of Defense Communities as a class of 2020 Great American Defense Community. So this is what that is all about, and this is a great example of why that happened for this region. So thank you all very, very much for all that you do to support all of our military members.
Thank you, Rick. And we have one more. We have Steve Russell from Congressman Bost's office.
Thanks, Deb. So Congressman Mike Bost, he's a Marine Corps veteran himself. He employs 3 other veterans as well as a reservist throughout his district offices, which comprises about 40% of his district workforce. He's also the ranking member of the VA Subcommittee on Disability Assistance and Memorial Affairs, which has afforded him the opportunity to introduce and pass numerous pieces of legislation that have expanded benefits and streamlined processes for our nation's heroes. Most notably, the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act of 2017, which has so far reduced appeals wait times by up to 2/3. More recently, actually this month, he's introduced 2 bills, HR 7445, which expands the VA home loan guarantee for National Guardsmen who are activated by their state. And he's also introduced the Transition for Success Act, which allows Reserve and Guard personnel to participate in the Skill Bridge program as they are transitioning back to civilian life. So as employers, please, if you're not participating in the Skill Bridge program, please check it out. It's just a quick Google search for that program. And lastly, we just want to thank you for being community partners and supporting our Guard and Reserve personnel.
All right. Well, thank you all for all of your words and for so many of you being able to join us for this statement of support signing. We so much prefer to do these in person, but we've all had to make adjustments during this time. So when we are able to get back out and around again, we hope that you all will be able to join us out at Scott Air Force Base for one of our employer events, hopefully within the next year or so. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us and for all of the words, and thank you for signing. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.